Look, I've said it before, I'll say it again. If you find Springtrap attractive, you'd probably also like Benedict Cumberbatch attractive, because the most important thing to you is a voice. Not to say that Benedict Cumberbatch is unattractive.
Ladies, gentlemen, and those with the good sense to do away with the whole notion, I welcome you to the premier audio medium for all your Fazbear entertainment needs. The Freddy Fazbear Pizza Podcast. Note, FFPP is not responsible for any loss of appetite, disinterest, dismemberment, or other legally classified statuses. So strap in and enjoy.
Welcome back to the Freddy Fazbear Pizza Podcast. I'm your host with the Toast of Rye Toast here to talk about Five Nights at Freddy's. You might immediately notice the audio might sound different. I don't actually know how different it's going to sound, but I recently got a new audio interface, and I'm plugging everything through there. And, theoretically, the microphone determines the sound, not necessarily the audio interface, right? But the microphone I record these podcasts on and the main channel videos and stream with is my Shure SM7B. That's because it's a dynamic microphone, and it blocks out all of the sound from this obviously untreated basement that I record in, right? I've got a better microphone in a treated closet over there that I do the voiceovers for. And that's the main reason I got the interface, because my previous interface is kind of loud. Where if I would turn up the gain on the interface, the preamp that's built in was very loud and there was like a hissing noise. Whereas this one has a stronger built-in preamp and this is the most important part, is quieter. But the reason why it was kind of a twofold purchase. One, the interface I had been using is very old and very loud, and I can't listen through the interface. Now I can. So if you notice, I'm wearing headphones. It's because right now, not only can I hear my computer, I can hear the microphone through the headphones, and there's no delay. So I get to know exactly how I sound while I'm recording, which is wonderful. But another important thing to note here is the Shure SM7B specifically. A lot of you might not know this, especially if you're not doing recording stuff. The Shure SM7B is kind of the go-to podcasting microphone because it's really good at not listening to anything else in the room. It's really good at only picking up, the moment I go over here, it's immediately very hard. Let alone, if I'm 10 feet that way or plumbing a wall away, you know what I mean? So that's part of the reason why I got it. The problem with the Shure SM7B is it needs a lot. I just realized my filters are still on. Oops. Gotta turn those off. I don't know if that's gonna make a meaningful difference for you guys, but it needs a lot of gain. It's a really quiet microphone, and my previous interface wasn't really capable of providing enough gain through its internal preamp. Most people recommend a external preamp, specifically the Cloud Lifter is often recommended for the Shure SM7B just to make it sound louder and a little bit cleaner. I didn't buy one of those yet. I still don't think I now don't think I have to. For those of you interested, I bought the Behringer UMC 204 HD Euphoria interface, and it's got a Midas preamp built in. And that preamp gives me a lot more gain. So ideally, these are going to be a lot louder. Or not necessarily a lot louder, but a lot clearer. Because one of the consistent complaints I've always gotten on podcasts and on streams is that I sound quiet. And yeah, I did. Because I didn't have a good enough preamp for this microphone. And now theoretically, I do. So that's good. But the really big audio difference you'll hear is on shorts and on the second channel, like when I do voiceovers, because those are going to be done in the closet booth I have over there. And those theoretically should sound a hell of a lot better. It still is a bit of a learning process. I'm kind of getting more and more audio tech savvy. I'm not super audio treatment savvy. I'm not really sure what I'm doing for audio treatment. Kind of just figuring it out as I go. I think I've got a pretty good EQ setup for that microphone. I still have to learn how to EQ this properly, but we'll get there when we get there. Regardless, theoretically, the streams and the podcasts are going to sound a lot louder and clearer, and the voiceover content is going to sound fucking crisp. All this to say, Is it important that you know this? Not really, but, podcasts are audio mediums, and I figured I would address it up top immediately so that you're not distracted, like, does it sound a little different to you? Because it probably won't sound different, but it might be a little bit louder. This actually goes for last week's podcast as well. I recorded this one in advance, but the new audio setup was on last week's podcast as well, and last week's main channel video. Jeez, I just realized this is probably a little too late, but whatever, it's fine. We're here today to talk about Five Nights at Freddy's, as we usually do on the Freddy Fazbear Pizza Podcast. It's pretty much just going to be going back to more timeline brainstorming and figuring out more shit about the FNAF timeline and where I stand on it. I did see some comments from last timeline podcast where people were saying that FNAF 4 can't be that early because the phone call. I misspoke. When I said my timeline, I said FNAF 4 is first, then FNAF 2, right? I meant the mini-games, like the daytime mini-games. When I say FNAF 4 is first, I mean those mini-games specifically. And Secret of the Mimic looks like it's going to be even earlier, so I can't wait to see that. But I'm talking about specifically the daytime mini-games. FNAF 4's night, like the main gameplay, I believe that's Michael Afton's nightmares after being experimented on. It's a little convoluted, right? But I believe that the FNAF 4 testing chambers are real, and Michael Afton was put through them, but the gameplay we see during the nights of FNAF 4 is more specifically Michael Afton having nightmares after being freed of that, which is why things from FNAF 1 bleed into those nightmares, like the backwards phone call. So FNAF 4 daytime is beginning. FNAF 4 gameplay is ongoing after FNAF 1. It's just like a constant thing. He just always has those moving forward. But last episode we did that. We did Michael Afton's timeline, ending at him being Old Man Consequences, which I still really like. I guess to start off, we should go for William, right? William is kind of the linchpin in a lot of this. Yeah, I guess we do, huh? So the big questions with William, I think, are the earliest parts of the timeline and where he ends up. I am really torn, and a lot of y'all saw this on last week's video. I'm really torn on where William is right now. Because I do think for a long time I was like, Burntrap has to be the body of William Afton. But now that we know he was never planned to move, my thinking has been, okay, well, is Burntrap a hallucination? Which is possible, and that still lines up with what we got. We have to remember, just because Scott said security breach wasn't what he initially envisioned, he did also say security breach is what we have, and that is the active canon for this series, and we're moving forward with that. So because of that, I don't want to say, oh, disregard what we saw from Burntrap in Security Breach. I would rather say, does this align with what we have in Security Breach and align with what Scott had originally envisioned? And I think Burntrap being hallucination does. Because, one, it would explain why he was never supposed to move in the original. He was just kind of in the corners of your vision. And in what we have, we never physically see Burntrap. At least not in a confirmed way. We arrive and we see Burntrap through monitors, and there is the one ending cutscene where, like, the place is crumbling down and Freddy and Gregory run out of there, and you see Burntrap walk forward and get yoinked by the blob, and that's the thing that Gregory draws in his comics. But is that something we physically see, or is that just Gregory seeing it through a monitor again? And even if we physically see it, Gregory possibly working for Glitchtrap in the past, a la GGY from Tales from the Pizzaplex, would mean he used a Vanny mask, and from Ruin, we know that if you put on a Vanny mask, it's likely you get the occipital nerve chip, which then allows things to be placed in your vision. So we, unfortunately, cannot trust anything Gregory sees as, like, that's definitely there. It needs to be something that like physically touches and lifts Gregory, essentially, right? Because even the obstacles in our way could be something that we are hallucinating, and sure, we can't physically pass through them, but is that us not being able to, or is that Gregory's mind not letting him try because he sees an object there? Does he reach out to touch these things? I don't know, right? Because I think that's the most logical explanation for Ruin. The fact that in Ruin, there are physical objects in the real world that if we put on a mask, we see that in the AR world, they are fake and we can walk through them. That doesn't make any fucking sense. It would make more sense the opposite, where like in the AR world, there's a blockage, we can't walk through, we take it off, the blockage isn't there anymore. And that happens. But when it's a physical object that is no longer real in the digital world, to me, the only logical explanation is that physical object is an occipital nerve hallucination that is forcing us to use the mask more to eventually take over our mind and make us the next Vanny. I think that's the most logical explanation, which is wild, but you know. So because of that, William's body doesn't have to exist by security breach. Burn trap can be a hallucination. But the problem is, if so, where is William? Because then Fazbear Frights slots in pretty well. The idea of, well, if William exploded in Fazbear Frights, he doesn't need to be around for Burn Trap. But then I have the issue of I'm so attached to the theory that Ultimate Custom Night is done by the spirit within Golden Freddy because of the ending of Ultimate Custom Night. I don't see any other logical explanation with the current evidence we have that a spirit outside of Golden Freddy's spirit is doing Ultimate Custom Night. The idea that the ending of Ultimate Custom Night is Golden Freddy fading into the distance is such strong evidence for me that whoever is in Golden Freddy is doing Ultimate Custom Night. And Andrew really can't be in Golden Freddy. Well, he can if we disregard the fetch minigame from Into the Pit. That's really what it comes down to, right? Because in the fetch minigame from Into the Pit, it shows Golden Freddy is still possessed by the time of fetch. And fetch is post Ultimate Custom Night. So if someone was if the spirit in Golden Freddy is doing Ultimate Custom Night, and there is still a spirit in Golden Freddy after Ultimate Custom Night, then Andrew's timeline doesn't make as much sense anymore, is where I'm at. So like it makes more sense to me if Cassidy is the one doing that, and is the one in Golden Freddy before and after Ultimate Custom Night, so on and so forth. I don't know. It's just Golden Freddy fucks up Andrew doing Ultimate Custom Night, for me, anyway. I'm not trying to say this is a smoking gun, right? It's totally possible that Andrew's doing Ultimate Custom Night and Golden Freddy, that cutscene means something else. Totally possible. But I just don't see... That just doesn't make sense to me, I guess. I don't understand what that ending cutscene could possibly mean if Golden Freddy isn't the one doing Ultimate Custom Night. Because also, it seems crazy to me to have a game where you're the, like Ultimate Custom Night on its surface makes so little sense if it's not Golden Freddy. Because then it's like, okay, here's this game showing you that William Afton is being tortured forever, and you're supposed to know that the one doing it is someone who's never been talked about in the games at all up until this point. Not once mentioned ever. Meanwhile, the final cutscene is Golden Freddy fading into the distance for no reason. Like, that seems so sloppily done for what is meant to be, like, the capstone for FNAF, that it just doesn't make sense to me. So I do still think Cassidy is the vengeful spirit. I think Cassidy is the one you should not have killed. And it's mainly because of that Golden Freddy cutscene in Ultimate Custom Night. If we didn't have that Golden Freddy cutscene in Ultimate Custom Night, I would be way more open to Andrew being the one that you should not have killed. But because we have that Golden Freddy, I think that the one you should not have killed kind of has to be Cassidy. Because I don't think Golden Freddy is Andrew, because Golden Freddy is still possessed by Fetch, according to the Into the Pit minigame. Now, there is the other option here, that Fetch minigame showing Golden Freddy isn't accurate. And, like, we know Golden Freddy isn't in Fetch, but that Fetch minigame isn't accurate to Fetch anyway. But it is showing us that Golden Freddy is possessed during Fetch. Which would be really weird, right? Because there's the other explanation I think that is perfectly reasonable, which is Golden Freddy is representative of Andrew because in the timeline, Andrew was killed by being put into Golden Freddy's suit and activating the spring locks. Which, like, he would have been too small to wear the suit, but it still would have killed him, right? Like, it's still, being inside of a spring lock suit, I don't care if you're, like, 6 or whatever, it's gonna kill you. And then that's why he's the one you should not have killed. That's why he's so vengeful, because he got put through such a painful death. That's how his body gets attached to William, because Springtrap uses pieces of Fredbear to repair itself between FNAF 3 and FNAF 6. Everything lines up for that. And then you can have Fazbear Frights' explanation, which is after Ultimate Custom Night, William's body is pulled out of the wreckage, but Andrew is still attached to William, making him still, like, preventing him to die so he can continue to torture him eventually. And then he explodes into Fetch, or he explodes onto a bunch of things, and the main part of Andrew's consciousness rests into Fetch, and we move on from there. That's totally feasible. But then why is Golden Freddy in the Fetch minigame and active? Unless maybe it's just trying to say, like, hey, Andrew's here, you know? Because I don't, when I say that, like, the spirit inside of Golden Freddy is doing Ultimate Custom Night, I don't mean to say that the spirit is actively inside of Golden Freddy during Ultimate Custom Night. I don't think that's true. I think the spirit is appearing as Golden Freddy, reminding William what William did to him. Like, you put me through this spring lock. This is what you've done to me. You know what I mean? I think that's fair. I don't know. So, long story short, because of that Fetch minigame, and Golden Freddy still being actively possessed by the time of Fetch, it throws a lot of doubt into Andrew being the one doing Ultimate Custom Night for me, which then throws a lot of doubt into all of Stitchline games in general for me. So because of that, we don't have a clear answer on where William Afton is or what he's doing post Ultimate Custom Night. So, like, I could see Burn Trap being William's corpse. The question is then, why is he, like, never moving but in the background in a bunch of shots? That's weird. That's suspicious. And then, to top it off, there's the whole, oh, well, the Blob and Burn Trap aren't real because they're in one of Gregory's comics, which is a valid interpretation, except for the fact that the Blob is physical and real, and we see it at the beginning of Ruin before Cassie puts on a Vanny mask. It is so important that for the first, like, 10 minutes of Ruin, that is the only vision we've gotten of modern FNAF without any ambiguity. Because up until that point, as far as we're aware, Cassie has never put on a Vanny mask, does not have an occipital nerve chip, has never been in contact with Agony. So for those first 10 minutes of Ruin, when she's going through the beginning of the Pizzaplex, she sees the state it's in, she talks on the walkie-talkie, she sees Chica, she sees the Blob at the bottom of the staircase. All of these things happen to a clear and sound mind. Whereas, like, Gregory only saw it after possibly wearing a Vanny mask, meaning he has an occipital nerve chip. So we can't trust what he sees, but we can trust what Cassie saw at the beginning of that game. And she saw the Blob. And if she saw the Blob, then I think by osmosis, Burn Trap is in some way real. Right? Because Gregory drew a picture of the Blob and Burn Trap at the same time next to each other. And the Blob is real. We know that for a fact. So, like, Burn Trap, I guess, is real. But then why was he popping around all over the place? Unless that's, like, William Afton doing an agony hallucination at Gregory. Maybe? I don't fucking know. Maybe that's the summary of the timeline. I don't fucking know. These are the really hard questions, I think. Then there's also the possibility that Burn Trap is somebody else's body, which I think is possible, right? It's not impossible that, like, they found the burnt remains of the Scrap Trap suit that was left or whatever and hobbled it together and put another body inside of it. It's possible. I think it's weird. I think it's one of those twists that feels cheap. It feels like a twist that's only done to try to make people be wrong Like, it's not because it's not a twist because you set this up from the beginning and you planned it out and you meant to do this all along. You purposely made an obtuse twist just to prove people wrong. And that would be the idea of William Afton, or that'd be the idea of at the end of FNAF 6, William Afton burns alive in a Springtrap suit, and the next time we see that building, there is a burnt corpse inside of a burnt bunny suit, and it's not the same guy. That's just like a twist for twist's sake. You know, that feels really cheap to me. If you wonder why I keep looking over there, my audio monitor, like my OBS window is on the left side, and it's got an audio monitor, and like I can hear myself, but I don't know how loud I am relative to what I have been loudness wise. So I'm just checking that to make sure that it's still in the acceptable range, which it looks like it is. So figuring out where William ended up is a little tricky, but I think we can at least build out this timeline up until FNAF 6 pretty unambiguously, right? So William Afton, big bold letters at the top, and then beginning Secret of the Mimic ? I think I have decided, unless we get a date and Secret of the Mimic is end of next year, I think I'll wait until at least after Secret of the Mimic to put out this timeline. I think we're going to get so many goddamn answers for one of the foggiest parts of the timeline. It's kind of just foolhardy to put a timeline out before it, right? And I don't think I'm alone in that. I feel like a lot of people have been putting together a timeline and they're waiting for Secret of the Mimic. But Secret of the Mimic ? I think the first knowable thing we have of William is sometime in the late 1970s, Fredbear's is established. I think it's possible that Fredbear is established in the early 1980s, but I do genuinely think that I really like the idea of Fall Fest being this trial period for characters, and the most popular ones were then turned into animatronics for Fredbear's, for Freddy's, for Circus Baby's Pizza World, stuff like that. So at some point, Secret of the Mimic plus Fall Fest is happening. Near the end of Fall Fest's lifespan, we get Fredbear's Family Diner. I'm of the belief that William Afton has always had a screw loose. I think he's always been kind of crazy and is trying to do immortality and some shit. But the thing is, I don't know if that's from birth, he's always been like that, or something before the parts we know of the timeline. Because I think at least by Fredbear's, he's trying to experiment with humanity and life. So maybe something happened at Fall Fest. Maybe that's the Secret of the Mimic. I don't know. But I think at least by Fredbear's, he's already experimenting with life in some way. Because we have to consider that by 1983, he's already like a piece of shit dad who's never around his kids, doing some kind of experiments probably. On what? Who knows? Maybe just on robotics. But by 1983, already doing shit. And then 1983, the bite happens, known as the Big Bite, until the Bite of 87. And I think this is when he starts experimenting with life with animatronics. Right? God, William really is a linchpin. Maybe he should be saved for last. It's so much shit branches off from William. No, because if I try to bake this timeline anymore without doing William, I'm going to be dancing around a lot of shit like I already was for Michael. So let's go. Let's do William. So let's do William. A lot of the fandom wants to do that. Weirdos. Look, I've said it before, I'll say it again. If you find Springtrap attractive, you'd probably also like Benedict Cumberbatch attractive, because the most important thing to you is a voice. Not to say that Benedict Cumberbatch is unattractive, but that is his most attractive asset. Anyway, what if that's the cold open? That'd be pretty funny. I think that's cold open worthy. I was thinking it was gonna be the I don't fucking know, but maybe that's the cold open. I think that's funnier. So I'm to bring you into my headspace, because I'm brainstorming timelines here. I kind of think that Circus Baby's Pizza World opened between 1985 and 1987. Because I think Balloon Boy and the Puppet were originally intended to... Well, no, the Puppet's older. But I think at least Balloon Boy was originally intended for Circus Baby's Pizza World. Right. And Circus Baby's Pizza World opened after a closing of a Freddy's. So to me, the timeline seems to be Fredbear's opens, Freddy's opens, Fredbear closes in 1983, the same year that Freddy's opens. Freddy's closes 85-86. Circus Baby's Pizza World is slated to open sometime in 86, but doesn't because Elizabeth is killed. Actually, is he talking about Pizza World or rental service when he says the opening and unfortunate closing? That's a good question. I actually don't remember. See, this is the brainstorming process, right? Due to the massive success, and even more so, the unfortunate closing of Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, it was clear that the stage was set, no pun intended, for another contender in children's entertainment. Unlike most entertainment venues, our robotic entertainers are rented out for private parties during the day. Okay, so he's talking about the current... Interesting. He's talking... Okay. I still think... Okay, rewired my brain for a second. Circus Baby's Pizza World was slated to open sometime in early 80s, possibly around when Freddy's was opening. However, possibly before Missing Child Incident, right? He plans to do this, the robots prove to be too dangerous, he does it himself. And then, this is talking about FNAF 1. Is FNAF 1 massively successful? No. But we know that Hand Unit is programmed by William, so of course he would say that, right? Because, right, I still do think that the gameplay of Sister Location is post-FNAF 1. Because I think that's when, like, William's, like, post-FNAF 1, post-Follow Me, William is dead, Michael's instructions are go to Sister Location, figure this shit out for me. And Michael goes there, and right now it's a rental service because FNAF 1 has closed. And Michael goes down there, and it's like, oh yeah, Freddy Fazbear's Pizza's closed, so now we rent out people. So I think that's what that's talking about. So now Circus Baby's Pizza World opens up sometime in 83. And Circus Baby's Pizza World expressly is to create animatronics to kidnap and experiment on children. Because they were expressly built for that purpose. So I think it's after 83. We're going to say 1984 just because it's funny. So the bite happens. 1984, William Afton starts doubling down on experiments because I think he notices Fredbear's suit, like Golden Freddy, acting a little weird. And he's like, if I can recreate this, right, my son gets chomped by Fredbear, and now Fredbear's acting strange. If Fredbear is possessed and I can recreate that, suddenly we have a secret of life. We know how to make something possessed by someone. I just need to recreate the bite of 83. I need to recreate the big bite. I need to make the Funtime animatronics. Here's where it gets... I think that's pretty... fair to say. I think that's agreeable of a position. Is it confirmed? Of course not. But I think that's an agreeable position. Here's where it gets a little spicy, and I really like this, and this goes back to a video I made much, much earlier this year that I think had a Temu sponsorship that a lot of people were very upset about, so I took the Temu sponsorship out after the contract expired. Yeah, fun fact, if any fellow content creators are watching this, check your contracts just to make sure, but a lot of contracts just say like after 30, after 45 days or whatever. Not a lot of them will specify the ad remains in perpetuity. If your contract doesn't state that the ad remains in perpetuity, you can just take them out. Anyway, don't get yourself into trouble. Double check your contracts. Anyway, but I really like that video because it talks about Henry helping to make the Funtime animatronics. And a lot of people are like, but why? Because William is stated to do that. For me, it comes down twofold. One, they're incredibly advanced, and I think that leans on Henry just because they're incredibly advanced. But two, I think it explains... I think it's a possible explanation for the death of Charlotte Emily. I think William Afton's like, my son is dead, and this is a perfect opportunity to experiment on life and how to bring him back. But I need machines that I can't build yet. And I need someone who's smart enough to do it. But if I come up to Henry and say, I need you to help me build a machine that can recreate my son's death, he's going to say no. He needs skin in the game. He cares about his daughter, doesn't he? Kills Charlotte Emily. And now, even though William, I want to be clear about this, William, I do not think gives a single shit about the lives of his children. He sees them as assets. But he also knows how to manipulate. William Afton is a master manipulator. We know this from the books. So... and from the movie to an extent. So if William Afton, knowing how to manipulate people, kills Henry's daughter, and then comes up to Henry in his grief and goes, oh, right, he's British. Oh, right, all right, Tuesday, isn't it? No, I'm sorry. He comes up to Henry and he's like, I know what it's like to lose your world. I know how you're feeling. Let me help you get through this. and he becomes one of Henry's most crucial rocks for support. And then one day, as he's helping Henry and like helping him get through this, he goes, It's crazy. No, I shouldn't say. Well, I know it's insane, but sometimes I feel like that old Fredbear suit is moving. Like, not when it's in an animatronic mode, just as if someone's moving it. Have you seen the same with the marionette? And in that moment, Henry, like, maybe he does, you know, he's not sure. And doing shit like that, eventually William is like, what if there was a way to bring both of our children back? And that's the leverage he uses. That's the manipulation he uses to get Henry to help build the Fun Times. 1984, William manipulates Henry to build the Fun Times. And then Circus Baby kills Elizabeth. So that plan is scrapped on arrival. Didn't work. Oopsie daisy. William's annoyed, and Henry goes into a depressive spiral, never to be seen again for some time. Right? I think that moment is like, oh God, something I've created accidentally killed my business partner's son. How do I live with this? And then something he purposely created kills his business partner's daughter. He's on the brink of a spiral, if not in it, right? He disappears for a bit. William is like, well, I still need kids to experiment on. So in 1985, he does the MCI. And I also think this is twofold. I think this is two birds with one stone. Henry is a good person for the most part. And William knows, if things go too far, Henry knows enough to go to the police and ruin everything. He needs to discredit Henry, and he still needs someone to experiment on. So he does the missing child incident. He kills those kids. He puts them in the suits to see if they possess those suits. And he frames Henry. Which is why the FNAF 1 posters say someone was charged and I believe convicted. I'm double checking. I'm pretty sure it says someone was convicted, which means if someone is convicted, they're going to prison for the most part, unless you're incredibly wealthy. And again, this is FNAF 1. So it's possible that this has been retconned since then, because this game came out when like there wasn't that much of a story planned out. Yes, suspect convicted. That word says convicted, like you have been found guilty. Or like you took a plea deal or some shit, you know, legal stuff. So my thinking is that's William getting out two birds with one stone. Get Henry out of the way and discredit him. Now he's the one who's been arrested for the disappearance of 5 children. And like in the books, they even touch on that, where in the books people were like, yeah, we suspected Henry, but we let him go because like there wasn't that much evidence for it, and like it's Henry. But they always thought it was William, but they couldn't pin it down. But like they also brought in Henry. And I think that's kind of our tip to say, like, in the games, William frames Henry for that. Which is why William gets away with it scot-free. Scot-free. Scott Cawthon free, if you will. Fredbear's does close, though. And at this point, we hear in Sister Location that there are investors that these people, that like William and Henry have to appeal to. So I wouldn't doubt if all of this is happening without the explicit ownership by William and Henry. Like, they don't own the company. They are the ones running it, though. The shareholders own it, right? Like, we hear in Sister Locations, like, I understand that, Mr. Afton, but that's not what I was asking. It's like, that's not, I believe, I could be misremembering, but I believe the caption in one of the ports of Sister Location says investor, or like board member or something. I could be misremembering that. And it doesn't sound like an investigation. It sounds like a board meeting. So I wouldn't doubt if MCI happens, Freddy shuts down, those animatronics are no longer in the hands of William Afton. He cannot get to them. They're locked away. Shit. Right? In the background, he's doing the FNAF 4 experiments on Michael during this time. So then some time goes by, and FNAF 2 opens up. Hopefully you can't hear, my kids are playing upstairs. I don't know if you can hear them screaming, but it's very funny. And Animatronics locked away. Then, 1987, FNAF 2 opens up. In FNAF 2, the withered animatronics, the originals, are used as spare parts to repair the toy animatronics, and some of that remnant starts carrying over. I think that's how the toys get possessed. Because, again, save them. I get it. There's a dead child incident. More kids die here. But I believe that's at, like, near the end of this, right? Like, something happens around night 4, night 5. At least that's what the phone call seems to imply. And because of that, why would the toys be acting strange at night 1? Like, the toys are climbing on... Mangle can climb on the ceiling. And FNAF AR pretty much explicitly states, like, unless it's possessed, we don't know how to fucking do that. So, to me, it's like, if they're possessed by night 1, they're possessed by something else. That being the missing child incident from that, like, taking spare parts and putting them into the new ones. Regardless, William wants to get close to it, but knows that he can't just roll up as himself. That'll put too much suspicion and eyes on him. So he pulls Michael out of the nightmare chamber. I missed a lot of stuff that happens with Michael because it's already in his timeline, but, like, you know, Midnight Motors happens around 1983, 1984. Like, I think that happens after he kills Charlotte Emily. Puts Michael into the nightmare chamber around that time as well. FNAF 2 opens, pulls Michael out, says, go do shit for me. Doesn't do it right. FNAF 2 closes. FNAF 2 closing is a blessing in disguise. FNAF 2 closing is a really big step for William Afton, because when FNAF 2 closes, they state they scrapped the toy animatronics, and the toy animatronics had pieces from the original animatronics that are now unaccounted for. So, like, they say, like, oh, we're keeping the old ones for safekeeping. It's like, damn it, they're locked away again. But this time, the toys are available. Takes the toys, melts them down, starts doing remnant experiments in the sister location bunker post-87. So I hear you. What about the dead child incident? Right? Like, if all of this is still missing child incident, what about the dead child incident? I think that was William Afton getting desperate. I think William Afton still has not gotten to observe any of these animatronics after being possessed. Right? Like, he does the MCI, Freddy's closes before he really gets to observe any reactions. Now, FNAF 2 comes along, and he can't really be there to observe because it'd be too suspicious. He needs to try to get something out of them. Right? I do think it's possible that he's the other guy who's been talked about working there. Like the day shift guy or whatever it was. But, like, nothing's happening. They're not doing anything, and he's running out of time. You know what would piss off angry spirits if they are there? Flaunting what happened to them in front of them. Isn't it noteworthy that the missing child incident victims are hidden inside the suits, but the dead child incident victims, the FNAF 2, like, save them minigame dead kids, are just strewn about the restaurant, all nearby animatronics? Some people have said that they're put nearby animatronics because they're possessing those animatronics. But what if the reason the dead child incident kids are near the animatronics is because William is trying to find a reaction? He wants to prove that they are possessed. So he puts on the same suit that he killed them in, kills these children, and puts it in front of those animatronics. Look what I'm still doing. Are you going to do anything about it? Save them. And then when Freddy comes to face William Afton, you can't. He got what he needed. He saw them moving. He knows that it worked. But before he can get too close, it closes down again. But now he has the toys, which he knows has pieces of the missing child incident victims in it from the older suits. So he does the sister location experiments. Then FNAF 1 opens up while he's doing all these experiments. He needs more material. He still needs those goddamn suits, but FNAF 1 is around. So he pulls Michael out again. Hey, go do it. Doesn't work again. This is around 1993. Doesn't work. Doesn't work again. And he's like, you know what? Fine. Michael, stay out of the nightmare pit. I'll go do it. And he goes. He goes and he takes apart every single one of those animatronics, because after FNAF 1 closes down, he knows it is a matter of time until these goddamn animatronics are bought up by the board members again. His window is closing. His window to get these animatronics is closing fast. He's gotta do something. So he does. He goes in, he lures them to the back room, and he dismantles them. And that in that moment, he's killed by those spirits. He does it enough. He's in the back room. The spirits finally, like, free to an extent, are cornering him. He puts on the old Springtrap suit, dies. So then the sister location stuff happens, but that doesn't have to do with William. We have a time skip here. Some amount of time post FNAF 1 to FNAF 3. And it's important to note here, people have said, like, oh, the back rooms get sealed up. Correct. I don't think that happens post FNAF 1. I think that happens in FNAF 2. I'll make a note. That's more Phone Guy's timeline, but I'll make a note. I think the back room gets sealed up, not with an active corpse inside, but with the bloody with the bloody Spring Bonnie suit. They throw it all in the back room, they seal it up. So then FNAF 1 comes around, and the reason William Afton is able to avoid these animatronics so deftly is because he breaks into that safe room, right? And he's able to sneak in and out of it. And then I hear you. It's like, okay, well then why did Springtrap not leave the back room until he's found in FNAF 3? I don't know. That I don't know. Maybe it's a matter of it just took a while to gain control of the suit. Maybe it's a matter of he only broke... Maybe it could be as simple as, like, if they sealed a back room and William Afton broke into it, knowing he's avoiding animatronics, he might have just made it big enough for a dude to fit through the crack he made and not big enough for an animatronic suit. But there's also we also have to consider, like, Springtrap is very strong. So, like, like, there's a chance that, like, if it was a sealed back room, he could have tried to break out. I don't know. There's also the idea of, sure, William Afton possessed the suit, but he didn't gain that, like, conscious control over it until he was disturbed. And being surrounded by all of the agony in the FNAF 3 location, that's when he gets the, like, control over the suit. That's also very likely. But there's a time skip that happens here. I think right now I'm still a 2015 truther for FNAF 3, but it doesn't super matter, to be real. Like, FNAF 3 is either probably 2015 or probably 2023. I think the Supreme Guide BarBADroid put out is having me lean towards 2023, but let's be super honest here. FNAF 3's year doesn't affect anything at all. So, like no matter what, FNAF 6 happens after it. Like no matter what. But I'm just going to say 2015 for now. FNAF 3, meaning he's freed and he escapes. Between FNAF 3 and FNAF 6, I lean on Stormister's interpretation for the combination of Fredbear and Spring Bonnie. And then sometime, maybe 2023, maybe just sometime after FNAF 3, FNAF 6 happens. After FNAF 6, we have Ultimate Custom Night, where he's being tortured forever by the one he should not have killed. And then after that is a big question mark. Is it Fazbear Frights? Is it Security Breach? I think I'm leaning on Security Breach. And that would mean Burntrap's body is real. So for now, I'll say after he Burntrap. And that's William Afton's timeline. 52 minutes into the recording of this podcast. That is a William Afton timeline, baby. It's as simple as. It only took an hour, and we have a bare bones bullet-pointed timeline. I don't know why people say this shit so hard. I don't know how much of that was me thinking. So we'll do, like, a question. Just to, like, in case we're at, like, 45 minutes or something, or, like, in case we're at, like, 35 minutes. I don't think 20 minutes of this was me silently thinking, but I do think like 5 to 10 minutes probably. So we might be good to end here, but we'll do a question. We like doing them. This question, if you want your questions answered on the podcast, you can send them to Freddy Fazbear Pizza Podcast at gmail.com. This question comes from, I'll actually do one that's actually pretty straightforward of an answer from me. And that's from Aqua, she, they. I'm curious what your thoughts on the between-night intermissions in FNAF 2, the ones from Freddy's point of view with the FNAF 1 animatronics and the puppet, are meant to signify, or what they might have been meant to signify when the game was released. Thank you for your question. So trying to figure out what they were meant to signify at the game's release is a much harder question. I think right now, I think there's a pretty good answer for what those are. I think Michael is getting the memories of Gabriel in those moments, or whoever the FNAF 2 night guard is, I guess, because it's not always Michael. But we kind of get the sense throughout the series that spirits can impart memories onto other people. They can be like, this is my memory, I'm giving it to you as a vision. And then you get that vision of their memory. And we have the FNAF 2 location, a place rife with vengeful spirits and animatronics who are trying to kill people. And we have an adult security guard, who they don't like because William, who puts on a Freddy mask. I don't think it's impossible that in that moment, Gabriel is imparting some kind of memories onto that night guard. And maybe when they dream, they see those memories. Maybe they're flashes while they're at work. It's unclear. But I think it's Gabriel's point of view after possessing Freddy in the original Freddy's location, the 1983 location. Now, this would be closer to 85 or 86. But, like, I think the marionette was there because I think the marionette was carried over from Circus Baby's Pizza World, which, like, I guess it kind of has to be because give gifts, give life and all that. I think that's the memory of Gabriel, like, this is my life now. I'm looking through the eyes of Freddy. I'm seeing my old friends in the eyes of the other animatronics. And now that he sees this guard putting on a Freddy's mask, that guard, whether Gabriel wants to or not, that guard is getting some of Gabriel's memories. That's my thinking. Because if not, I guess if not, it's just a random nightmare, which is possible, but it's kind of weird. That's my thinking anyway. Thank you for your question, Aqua. We're closing in on an hour, so hopefully we're close to 45 minutes at this point. If you have any questions you want to talk about on the podcast, you can send them to Freddy Fazbear Pizza Podcast at gmail.com. That is in the description. You can copy and paste it because it's a pain to type out. Again, let me know if the audio sounds bad or different in a way you don't like. It should sound better or no change if I did my job correctly. But until next time, thank you for watching the Freddy Fazbear Pizza Podcast, where the pizza abilities are endless. We hope to enjoy your future patronage. Bye-bye for now.